To Chandler's channel. I'm Tracy, your host, and today's episode is our Kiss Me I'm Irish intuitive monthly reading for, can you guess the month? March 2014. So welcome if that's what you're here for. Welcome if that's not what you're here for too. Please do stay though, if that's not what you're here for. How can you not with this silly hat, right? Okay, so before I get to the big guy who is my spirit guide Whitehawk, whom I consciously channeled for the reading part, I always like to touch back on his and our previous reading for February 2014, which was the month of love. And it was an interesting month, right? Whitehawk had said that it would be a month of synchronicity, of good fortune, and doors opening and doors closing. Then windows opening, and that we would find our pot of gold, which is really ironic, right? Because it's the month of March is where you're supposed to find your pot of gold, laddie, right? So I'm interested to hear what he's going to say about March 2014. Now, I have to say it was a great month for me. It did have some obstacles and there were some bumps in the road, but you know, I was down for a bit, but then I got back up and the synchronicity was still there and will be there until the end of the month. I'm doing this midweek, so it's not quite March yet. So the synchronicity would still be there. And all that with a Mercury retrograde. I don't know a lot about Mercury retrograde, but I do know it has to do with communication. But it's really interesting because you had the flux of the Mercury retrograde going with Whitehawk saying, well, the synchronicity is there for you to find your information, for your new doors to open, to keep moving forward regarding your goals and your desired outcomes. So it's kind of interesting how there was that. And it'd be interesting to take a look at. There's another vlog we could do, right? Mercury retrograde. I'll have to write that down on my list. So certainly I had no problems with communication in my written world, right, and in writing up my website. I'm trying to think back in regards to Mercury retrograde if there was problems with communication, and that could be, I guess, anywhere in electronics. Anyways, this is not about Mercury retrograde, and I have that about me where I kind of go off on a tangent, so I apologize. So all to say that February was a great month, I have to say, and you know, I hope doors opened for you to help you with your goals and your desired outcomes. Okay, so let's go and see what's up for us for March 2014 with the Luck of the Irish and Kiss Me I'm Irish and that pot of gold. Let's go see if he's a leprechaun. Okay. That Irish accent, right? I know. Indeed. And I'm laughing because the first visual I get is these leprechauns dancing around, you know, doing a jig. And I'm hearing leprechaun, leprechaun, leprechaun. And that comes from a hoops and yo-yo card or online e-card. And Whitehawk begins, indeed. He goes, it is a fun month, he says, of dancing around and being silly and drinking your so-called green beer, he says. But it is also a tragic month. A difficult month. A month that will come with many ordeals that we could not have imagined in our life as we know it. And so, although the month of March is leading us into the spring season, with change, chaos always precedes the change. He says, so with change comes chaos. And so it is nothing new to us to know that when the equinox energies arrive, that indeed this chaos ensues. And I'm sorry, I stumbled there for a second because my foot was getting sore and I was realizing that it's an old injury that's coming up. That's giving me a bit of a problem there. So to me, that reflects something within the March of 2014. So like old injuries coming up, inflammation. And Whitehawk says, he chimes in, yes, indeed, those two, there will be flare-ups, there will be old injuries that will also magnify or present themselves again, he says, in this month. But to get back as to what we're speaking of about the chaos preceding the change, it is not to say, child, that you cannot have a good month ahead of you, as much as it is to say that it will be a very good month come the end of March. But we have some bits and bobs to go through in the next few weeks before the new season of spring arrives with the equinox energies. And so when I speak of chaos, children, I do not mean of like all-out terror or world wars or all the tragedies of the world. He says, I do not mean to that extent. What I mean is, when I speak of chaos, I mean within our own world, whether it means nothing in your day is going right, or if it simply means that nothing in your life is happening and there's stagnation, and that it certainly seems as though your world is crumbling before you and or falling apart before you in your very eyes, and feeling quite, well, you feel as though, what else is there you could do? You put your hands up thinking, oh my God, is there possibly anything else that could go wrong? And he says, yes, it will most definitely seem like something like that. But he says, all for a good cause. He says, all for the end in sight of our dreams coming true. N'est-ce pas? Is it not so? And I don't know, I may have lost a few readers, or sorry, viewers from this reading. And he goes, and he pats me on the shoulder and he says, worry not, Pat, my child. He says, we speak the truth. And if people cannot hold on to the truth or walk through the truth, then they are simply walking through the world with their eyes closed and or dark glasses on. So they do not have to see, he says. And so we are teaching you how to walk through the ebbs and flows of life here, he says. So through it all, he says, as you march through March, he says, yes, I am aware, that's very punny, he says, Tracy. So as we march through March, he says, you better take your sense of humor with you, he says. And indeed, it is a good month then to have the luck of the Irish with you, and the beguileness of the Irish as well, he says. For indeed, you will need that sense of humor in your pocket as we march through March to April, to the spring, to the awakening, to the liveness, he says, of the world again. And I'm just made aware that Jesus is with us as we march through March. And Whitehawk says, yes, always watching, he says. He is always there for us. Do not forget, my children of the earth. And he takes off on his horse like, hi-oh, Silver, like he often does. God bless. And I'm just checking because, it's just very much so that Jesus wants to know he's with us. It's like such a big thing. So important to him to let us know he's here for us always. Just call his name and he's there for you. Thank you. Thank you. So there you go. That is our March intuitive monthly reading, 2014. And it was really funny because as he was saying the reading, I thought, oh yeah, here we go. It's going to be a month of Murphy's Law, right? Which is such an Irish thing. Oh no. Too many puns. Oh no. You might be sick of it by the end of it all. So we'll march through March and we'll see where it takes us. I always think, I know in looking back in my life, and maybe you're doing this as well, or you can start to do this as you journal. In looking back in my life, I can see that April has always been a really, really good month for me. Although perhaps January, February, March were, crap. April always brought the promise of spring, and always good things came for me. So whether it's because my cycles are, January to December, and I go with the equinoxes, and it's just me, I don't know. I don't think so. I think if we started to communicate and compare, we'd probably find that a lot of good things would happen to us for April. But again, everyone has a different cycle, and if you start to journal things or think back to when really good things happened to you, like when you met your spouse or your first boyfriend or your first job, or when you lost a job but then gained a job back, or if you think of all the good things that have occurred, your first child being born, or I'm just trying to think. For me, it was always jobs and boyfriends, and I always bounced back really well in April, and then the other equinox, which would have been September. September was another really good month for me, which was equinoxes, so that's why I'm able to say that in my cycle of things, I know good things usually happen. So I know it's going to be slow leading up. So probably for now with my, if I can use an example, my website, there probably won't be a lot that happens from now until after the equinox, because that's the flow within my life and in the world, in the earth. So I'm hoping, I can't expect because it may not be, right? But just based on my historical successes in my life, I'm hoping that April and May, those will be really, really good months for me. And so I'm going to keep note, right, mentally, and journal it down. And if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be like, what's going on? So tune in. I'll let you know what's happening. So jot it down, and, it's a way of keeping, because we can't remember everything, right? I mean, the brain is amazing, but at the same time, jot it down, and that way you have the notes that you can look back on, and you'll be able to see where the good things in your life have occurred, and maybe you'll notice there is a cycle. I'm just simply saying. Okay, so note that. Okay, so our intuitive weekly reading for our first full week of March is on Sunday. I do hope to see you there. I want to ask you, so when we're leading up to the March 17th St. Patrick's Day reading, you got hat head here. Do you want me to wear this? Bees la bop. Or do you want me to wear, a hat? Let me know. I'd like to hear from you and see what you think. All right. Thanks for tuning in. As always, I'm always very grateful. God bless. I'm Tracy for a Chandler's Channel.